I was sitting around my hobby room and I was kind of having a think, what could be my next project? When I realised I actually bought this kit ages ago and I really love the look of this vehicle, this Chrysler Atlantic concept car, and I thought it would make a great Batmobile. So I jumped online, found myself a Batman figure, and I thought I'd print him up and have him jumping across the bonnet. But this originally was a 1/4 scale figure, so it was huge, absolutely huge. So I needed to shrink it down. And I came across this awesome website that had actually a calculator on it. And it was so unbelievably simple to use. And all you have to do was, in this section here, just put in the original scale of your item and the scale you want to finish it at, hit calculate, and that gave it the exact percentage of how you would decrease the kit to print out. Now I'll leave the links for that particular site in the comments. Now this was so cool, such a great looking vehicle, had so much potential because it really gothic looking. And I'm really surprised how many parts there are in this kit. There's like 15 parts. There's virtually none. So what I wanted to do to it was actually add some fins to it, customize the interior, and I thought I might put a computer system in there. So I was having a bit of a look, contemplating a bit what I could do to it. And that section there on the right hand side, the passenger side, I thought I'd put in the computer systems. And so it was a time to actually put it all together. Pretty straightforward build. On the right hand side, because I had the computer system, I was going to glue in the door and actually fill in all the joints to make a nice solid panel there. And the driver's side, leave it like a normal door. Obviously Bats needs to get in and out. I had designed and printed up these bat fins. I really liked them, but the bottom of the fins weren't quite right, and I printed up in various sizes, so I had a bit of play with them. And of course it was time to fill up all the joints, and boy was there a lot of joints to fill. And here I'm just playing around with the different sizes and just like I said, just playing around trying to find the best look. So it's time to modify the interior. And I'm just cutting up this plastic card. And I'm just going to fill up that tub on the right hand side. And I'll need to glue in a couple of supports there. Otherwise it's got nothing to actually sit on and it'll just fall down. This card is to fill up the back seats. This section took a lot of filling to do to get it nice and smooth. I started off filling the joints up with sprue glue. And then later I would go in and actually fill it in with a bit of Tamiya putty. Now I just put the tub inside the body just to have a rough visual of what it's going to look like and what areas I needed to detail. We start filing the rough shapes in, and a bit of sandpaper to smooth it out. Now I usually start off with about 400 grit, then move on to about 600 to 800 grit, get a nice smooth. And there's sanding and filing and more sanding. There was a lot of sanding. And this is where I decided I might fill in the grille. Originally I was going to put the chrome bits in there, but I thought it might look a lot better. So rather than using putty, I'm using this resin. And the advantage of using resin, it actually conforms to the shape of the grille, and it comes up really, really well with virtually no sanding needed. Now I'm using this a lot lately in my filling. And there it is, you can see how cool it looks. Because it looks so cool, I decided to fill in those little headlights as well. And using the UV light, it dries so quickly. Now I actually went in and ended up redesigning the bat fins. And I did that using a piece of software called Blender. Really simple little process to do. And once I was happy with the actual design, I then moved it into Chitterbox, which is a piece of software you use for the 3D printer, and printed them out. Of course I had to set up these supports, and you can see I did them in various sizes just so I had, once again I had options, and then super glued them into place. You can see they fit much better since I redesigned them. The contour fits nicely. And it did need minimal amount of putty. I'm just adding some greeblies now that I've got out of my little box of bits and pieces, just to add a bit more detail to the interior so it doesn't look so plain. Now I also printed up these 3D computer monitors. I thought that would add a really nice touch to the interior. So Bats, has all sorts of access to information. Now I needed to put a little spacer there just so the computer monitors actually sit level, because the tub has a bit of an angle to it. And then I started detailing the rest of the tub out. Now I'm drilling a couple of holes here because I actually want to make up some wire looms to go in there, just to add a bit more detail. I'm just using this coiled wire, which is 1.5 millimeters in size. And I'm using this masking tape. I'm just cutting it in strips to create a wire tie to keep all that wiring together. It's a bit fiddly, but it does come together. This was a bit fiddly, but it was well worth the trouble. Came up really, really well. And just a matter, because it's wire, it's a matter of just shaping it into place. It's time to paint the whole tub. And once you give it a nice even colour, it really shows the detail in the actual tub, as you can see there. But we need to give it a bit more oomph, so it's time to give it a bit of a dry brush, and I'm using this Panzer Grey. And a base dry brush right around the whole tub. And this really pushes out detail. And I'm using this gunmetal now for the electronics, specifically the computer screen and some of the wiring as well. Just to give it that electronic feel to it, that tech feel. And look at the detail pop. Now these computer screens have got a whole bunch of buttons on there. So I'll start off actually painting them white, because I'm going to use a clear paint to go on top of that white, and using white it'll really make the clear paints pop out, make them look like they're glowing. Starting off with the clear red, I'm just using that for different buttons on there. No real scheme to it. And clear blue next from Tamiya. And finally the clear yellow. Now what it needs is actually some stuff on the actual monitors. So I had a bit of a think. I was going to use all sorts of different techniques. I ended up just printing it on plain paper. Very similar to do. At one stage I was actually going to try and use decals, but I just found this will be a lot easier. I printed these on my colour laser printer. And just using craft glue or PVA glue, stuck them into place. I was really happy with the way these came out. Really nicely come up. Off screen, I actually printed up this fire extinguisher and painted it all up, because Bat needs to be a bit safe. And just super glued it into place. And that's the interior almost done. Of course he needs somewhere to sit. I'm just using the Tamiya panel lines here. This is the black. And of course we need a steering wheel. Now with the base coat done and all the floors sanded out, it was time to give it a base coat of black, just so make sure I've gotten all the floors out, because black really brings it out. And it's this point I've realised it's the Batmobile, so it needs a jet engine. That's right in the backside. Now I pulled out a whole bunch of greeblies here and started to have a bit of a play, trying to figure out what's the best. Some of these just were a bit odd, too big, too small, too strange. And I settled on this little jet engine, which I actually built a long time ago for a different project, and was sitting around, but it did need a bit more detail for the actual inside of it, the actual nozzle. So just using some bits and pieces. I was happy with that, so glued it all in place. Now start off drilling a pilot hole and then actually grinding it all out. And just constantly test fitting it and grinding out until it actually slid in. And it fits so well. And to keep it in place, it was some 5-minute 2-part Araldite. Now these are the mag wheels. They originally came as chrome, and I used this easy off oven to actually remove the chrome. And all you do is spray it and it just melts off. But please do wear gloves and a mask. Quite toxic stuff. And just removing the Chrysler symbols on the tyres, or rather the rims. And they've been sprayed with a flat black and then a gunmetal to actually dry brush. Again, it brings out the detail wonderfully. All done, and the wheels work. Not that it's going anywhere. So for the joints here, I decided to use some of this putty, and it's actually not that good. I wasn't happy with it because it actually, even though I left it for 24 hours, didn't dry solid. It kind of had a rubbery finish to it. I wasn't happy with it at all. So I ended up going back to the resin, and what a great choice this was. Because as I brushed it on, it actually conformed to the contour. And it came up really, really well. Again, minimal amount of sanding once it all dried. You can see there it's had a slight touch in sanding and how the contour looks great. And there we go, we've got the base coat of black again. All nice and even. How good is that looking? Dark sea grey, because it's time to actually paint Bats up. I'm just blocking in his uniform to start off with. And now using a lighter shade of the dark sea grey with a bit of white grey there. I mixed it together and then gave him a bit of a dry brush. And this really pulls out the muscles. The black for his boots, his gloves and his cape. I always do the outline first and kind of do a bit of a fill in. Now I'm using this off-white for his eyes. Now what I like to do is actually paint his eyeballs and then outline them with the black and shape them to the correct size. And not forgetting his bat emblem on his suit. He's really starting to look like Batman now. The pans are grey to actually dry brush the black areas. I was actually really happy with the way this came up. Now the flat yellow for his utility belt. Now because I'm painting on a grey surface, a slightly darker surface, I did need to do a couple coats. And the steel for his belt buckle. Now I'm using this panel line, accent colour from Tamiya, around his utility belt. Just so it flows inside the recesses of the belt and really brings out the detail. And then a quick dry brush of the yellow and the white. Now a combination of this off-white and brown sand and a bit of this glazed medium for his skin tones. And the glazed medium basically gives it a lot more flow, a lot more transparency as well, plus slows down the drying time. So it gives you time to actually put it on, then do some blending. And the saddle brown I'm using for the shadow areas, down his cheek, his lips, underneath his nose, and then a bit of a blend with it all. Now I'm just seeing how he's going to fit actually on top of the bonnet. And I kind of liked it to be right there. Started off drilling a pilot hole, a small one to start off with, and then changed the size of the actual drill bit, enlarged it. And my drill bit wasn't quite large enough, so I kind of had to go in there with a hobby knife and kind of scrape it out slightly bigger. And you'll see it was such a perfect fit. Look at that. And he just sat there. It was great. Now the gunmetal for the exhaust there, or rather the jet engine, now I'm using this XPS foam for his base. Now what I'm going to do, I'm using this multi-purpose filler, and I'm just doing a really light coat, and I'm not actually trying to hide the texture, but rather just soften the texture. So it kind of looks in scale as a road, well again, road texture in scale to 1/24th, to what actually bats in the car is. Now with the base all covered, including the sides, it was time to paint it black. And I only had this little bottle of black. So I wouldn't recommend it because it's a bit of an expensive way to actually paint it. Since this, I actually went out and bought a bigger bottle from a craft shop. Much cheaper, bigger bottles. It was like 100 ml for $2. Nice even coat of the black. Yes, I paint this quickly all the time. Now, being a road, I need some road lines. And a bit of masking tape to actually mask out the areas that I want. Pretty straightforward job, it's just a matter of masking it up. Giving it some nice even spacing. Now the ivory for the actual white lines, now as hard as I try, because the surface is still a bit porous, it will bleed underneath the masking tape, so it will need a bit of a touch up with black. I had this great idea of actually putting a manhole in there. And I printed these up, printed up in a couple of different sizes and a number of them just in case one or two went a bit strange. Again with the black, nice even coat. Once that was all dry, onto the gunmetal once again and gave it a bit of a dry brush, and this is when all the detail popped out. You can see the actual manholes say Gotham City. What I'm doing here is cutting around the manhole just so when I push it in it doesn't actually bend but rather just pushes straight in, so I get a really sharp line around the edge. There we go, look at that. Looks great. And then super glue into place. Probably a little bit too much super glue, but hey, I'm generous. Now with the base all done, it's time to put the car together. Now what I decided to do here, rather than actually glue that in place, I just use a soldering iron to melt the studs there. And that really held it in place nicely. Be careful, don't burn your finger. Look how good that's looking. Now one thing I did need to do was cut a hole out just so I had access to bats. So when I put him on the actual bonnet, I can get through the little hole and actually glue him into place. Now I've put the car on the base just to have a rough idea what it's going to look like, and just made sure Bats is looking good and is at the right angle, and using 5mm epoxy resin, glued him into place. How good does he look? He's all solid, he's not going anywhere. On the base, and very happy with the way this turned out. So I think it's time for the hero images.